You think you know brutal executions? That the French guillotine or the English gallows were the pinnacle of cruelty? Japan guarded much darker secrets. 7 methods of death that made even samurai tremble. Executions so violent they were hidden from the history books. Tortures that lasted for days. Deaths that served as public spectacles for thousands. Why did Japan develop such extreme methods? What drove a culture of honor to create such brutality? If you value documented, factual history like this, please subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also, comment what city you're listening from. This script is thoroughly researched and factual, using sources from the Japanese National Archives and Edo period chronicles. Now, back to the story. Between 1200 and 1868, Japan executed criminals with a surgical precision for suffering. It wasn't just death, it was calculated theater, it was state policy, it was social engineering through scientific terror. The shogunate developed a justice system that transformed executions into mandatory educational spectacles. Each method first tested on minor criminals, each technique refined by generations of professional executioners, each death timed, documented, analyzed for maximum psychological efficiency. 7 cases that defined centuries of control through organized fear. Number 1, Ishikawa Goemon, 1594 to Kyoto. The most famous thief in Japan dared to steal from Toyotomi Hideyoshi himself during a tea ceremony. Not just gold and silver. He stole dignity from the man who was unifying Japan. Goemon led a network of 14 thieves specializing in daimyo residences. They used ninja techniques learned in Iga, silent movement, wall climbing, lockpicking with bronze tools. For 16 years, they stole an estimated total of 8,000 ryo of gold from the most protected homes in the country. Hideyoshi offered a 100 ryo reward for his capture, enough money to buy an entire rural estate. He was betrayed by Ishida Mitsunari, who infiltrated a spy into the gang for 6 months, captured, sleeping in an abandoned temple in Fushimi with his 3-year-old son, Gobei, in his arms. Hideyoshi ordered death by boiling, kamairi, the most spectacular method in the Sengoku arsenal. The cauldron was specially commissioned from the blacksmiths of Sakai, costing 42 ryo of pure gold, equivalent to the annual salary of 2 high-ranking samurai. Cast iron, 6.5 feet in diameter, 5 feet deep, decorated with embossed dragons on the outer edges. It weighed 1,900 pounds empty. It required an oak wood structure to support it over the fire. The oil used was refined rapeseed oil, more viscous than ordinary water, adhering to the skin as it slowly heated. The temperature began at 140 degrees Fahrenheit at 6 o'clock in the morning and rose 5 degrees every hour, following a precise schedule controlled by the executioner's assistants. Goemon was placed in the warm oil along with his son. Iron chains on his wrists prevented any attempt to climb out. Official witnesses reported that he managed to hold the child above his head for 1 hour and 43 minutes, using only the strength of his arms while his legs were slowly cooked. His hands trembled from the effort, but he did not lower the boy until his muscles finally gave out. The son died 6 minutes after touching the hot oil. 40,000 people packed Sanjo Bridge to watch. Local merchants sold prime viewing spots for 3 momi of silver each, the equivalent of a week's wages for a common craftsman. Entire families traveled from Osaka and Nara, especially for the event. Street vendors circulated, selling bento boxes, hot tea, and rice sweets throughout the execution. Even a single bamboo leaf can be useful when the wind is strong, were his final words recorded by the official chronicler Omura Yuko in the Taiheki Hideyoshi, on volume 13. He died after 2 hours and 17 minutes of slow boiling. His body was displayed on the same bridge for 7 consecutive days, tied to a bamboo stake. Crows ate his eyes on the 2nd day. His skin peeled off in strips from the heat. His family was banished from Japan for 3 generations. His confiscated assets totaled 315 ryo in gold and silver, in addition to 2 katana swords that were gifted to Hideyoshi's generals. The cauldron still exists at Higashi Honganji Temple, where it is used annually during Buddhist ceremonies to remind the faithful about karmic consequences. Boiled. Displayed. Forgotten. Number 2. Yui Shosetsu, 1651, Edo, the most dangerous military strategist of the early Tokugawa period. Former instructor at the Sendai Military Academy, dismissed for publicly criticizing the shogunate's isolationist policies. He spent 5 years studying urban guerrilla tactics in Chinese and Dutch manuals smuggled through Nagasaki. He led the Cayen Conspiracy, the first organized attempt to overthrow the shogunate through coordinated terrorism. He secretly trained 342 unemployed ronin in the mountains near Mount Fuji, using a natural cave 200 yards deep as a training base. Each man specialized in a specific function: 20 archers, 50 swordsmen, 40 fire specialists, 30 infiltrators, the rest for hand-to-hand combat. The plan was militarily brilliant. Simultaneously, ignite 12 strategic points in Edo during the Sanja Matsuri Festival of 1651, when 120,000 people would be concentrated in the narrow streets of the Asakusa district. In the resulting chaos, assassinate 17 specific government officials using shurikens poisoned with tetrodotoxin extracted from pufferfish, each dose costing 3 bayu of silver on the Yoshiwara black market. Simultaneously, 50 men would scale the walls of Edo Castle using iron grappling hooks and imported silk ropes, killing specific guards whose routines they had studied for 8 months. The ultimate goal was to capture Shogun Tokugawa Yatsuna alive and force him to publicly abdicate. He was discovered by chance when Okamoto Daihachi, one of the conspirators, tried to sell a stolen sword to a Nihonbashi merchant who secretly informed the magistrate about suspicious transactions. Under torture, Okamoto revealed the mountain hideout in exchange for 50 ryo of gold, enough money to buy a 2-story house in central Edo. Yui was captured 3 days before the scheduled attack on the 26th of May, along with 138 followers. Sentenced to crucifixion, Haritsuke. The cross was built by Edo's finest carpenters using sakura wood imported from Yoshino, 11.5 feet tall, 6.5 feet wide, erected on Shinagawa Beach, where sea winds would carry his screams for miles. Nailed at 10 o'clock in the morning with 4 forged iron spikes, each 5 inches long and 3/4 of an inch wide. His hands were pierced precisely between the metacarpal bones to distribute body weight without quickly tearing the flesh, a technique developed by the Yamada executioners through experiments on dozens of minor criminals. After the initial crucifixion, the real torture began. Sharpened bamboo spears pierced his body at mathematically calculated angles by master executioner Yamada Asaemon Koritoshi. 45 degrees into the right abdomen, penetrating 3 inches without hitting intestines, 30 degrees into the left shoulder, passing through muscles without damaging main arteries, 60 degrees into the right thigh, avoiding the femoral artery by mere millimeters. Each perforation was first tested on cadavers to ensure prolonged suffering without quick death. He resisted for 2 days, 14 hours, and 22 minutes, timed by officials, 16,000 spectators on the first day, 23,000 on the second. Entire families camped on the beach not to miss the moment of death. Vendors circulated, selling hot tea, rice bento boxes, and traditional sweets throughout the execution. Small children were lifted onto their parents' shoulders for a better view. The world will change without me, but the idea will live on, were his final words recorded by the scribe Matsuda Jinzemon in the official records of the Edo Magistrate, volume 46, folio 203. He died at dawn on the 3rd day from heart failure. His head was immediately severed and displayed for 30 days on Nihonbashi Bridge, preserved in coarse salt imported from China. His 152 books on military strategy and politics were publicly burned in the castle square while drums played. His ashes were thrown into Edo Bay. Number 3, Takahashi Oden, 1879, Tokyo. The last woman publicly executed in Japan, she murdered Gotaro Minikichi in an Osaka inn with kabushi poison. Aconitum japonicum. She waited for him to fall asleep, then mixed the powder into his sake drink. She stole 342 ryo in gold and silver. 3 months later, she killed Tsunekichi Goto in the same manner in Kyoto, taking another 215 ryo. It wasn't the crime that shocked the public, it was her behavior in court. She laughed throughout the trial, which lasted 17 days. She confessed to the murders with precise details, including where she bought the poison and how much she paid, 5 ba for each dose. She refused legal counsel. She asked to die quickly. Sentenced to hanging, Koshuke. The trial attracted 46 reporters from national newspapers. Executed in Kozukapara at 8:15 in the morning on the 26th of January. More than 30,000 people crowded to watch, some traveling from other provinces. Special train tickets were sold by the railway for the event. Street vendors sold bento boxes, hot sake, and traditional sweets. Children were brought by parents as moral education. The gallows were built of hinoki wood, 16 feet high. The rope was traditional hemp imported from Shizuoka, 3/4 of an inch thick, tested with 180-pound sandbags. The official executioner, Yamada Asaemon, charged 15 ryo for the work. As "You came to see me die as entertainment," were her final words recorded by reporter Fukuchi Genichiro of the Yomiuri Shimbun. She wore a blue silk kimono with embroidered cherry blossoms. She died in 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Her body was immediately transported to the Imperial University of Tokyo, where it was dissected by Dr. Ogata Masanao for criminology studies. Her brain was preserved in alcohol and studied for 23 years. Tried, hanged, studied. Number 4. Watanabe Kazuma, 1632. Nagasaki. A Christian samurai of noble lineage from the Arima family, converted by Portuguese Jesuits in 1584 when he was only 12 years old. Son of the daimyo Arima Harunobu, who controlled the Shimabara Peninsula, a region with the highest concentration of Christians in feudal Japan. After the Edict of Expulsion of Christianity, promulgated by Tokugawa Hidetada in 1614, Watanabe was forced to choose between apostasy or death. He refused to renounce his faith during interrogations that lasted 43 consecutive days. He hid a 2-inch silver cross in the hollow hilt of his family katana for 18 years, discovered during an official search ordered by Magistrate Takenuchi Shigeyoshi. Executed by the most psychologically prolonged method of Japanese torture, anatsurushi, suspension upside down over a pit. The technique was developed specifically to break resistant Christians, based on studies of human physiology carried out by shogunate doctors. The pit was dug by the Christian prisoners themselves under armed supervision, 6.5 feet deep, 5 feet wide, with perfectly vertical walls. It took 3 days to complete in the hard ground of Nagasaki. The cruelest aspect was not just the inverted position. Small surgical cuts were made behind both ears with a tanto knife sharpened by metallurgical experts. The cuts were exactly 3/4 of an inch long and 1/4 of an inch deep, calculated to gradually release cerebral blood pressure, preventing quick death by apoplexy. Blood slowly dripped onto the dry earth below, drop by drop. The goal was to keep the condemned conscious for as long as possible so that he might reconsider his faith and apostatize. Watanabe was tied by the ankles with 3/4 of an inch thick hemp ropes at 5:15 in the morning on the 14th of March, hung over the pit with his arms swinging freely. 12 official witnesses from the Nagasaki magistrate worked in 6-hour shifts to meticulously record each phase of his spiritual and physical resistance. One chronicler wrote down his words, another measured his pulse by touching his neck every hour, a third drew his facial expression. A fourth timed intervals between groans. He resisted for 5 days, 3 nights, and 16 hours, one of the historical records of resistance to anatsurushi. He prayed continuously in Latin, Portuguese, and Japanese, alternating between languages as his consciousness wavered. Pater Noster qui es in Ciles, repeated hundreds of times. Christ sustains me, Christ strengthens me, in Portuguese to provoke his torturers. He only stopped speaking to drink water offered with a bamboo spoon every 4 hours, a right granted to prolong the agony. He refused food completely. In nomine Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti, were his final words whispered in Latin in the early morning of the 5th day, recorded by the Jesuit interpreter Cristóvão Ferreira before his own forced apostasy. He died from cardiac arrest caused by extreme stress and gradual blood loss, documented in detail in the archives of the Dutch East India Company, commercial report number 123, written by director François Caron, who witnessed the execution. His body was left hanging in the pit for a full month as a public warning. Christian families were forced to pass by the pit daily on their way to work. His family was subjected to fumi, trampling on Christian images, every day for an entire year. His estate of 200 koku of rice was confiscated and redistributed to samurai loyal to the shogunate. His 400-year-old family katana was melted down and transformed into spikes for future crucifixions. Number 5. Nezumi Kozo, 1803 Edo. Jirokichi Nakamura, known as Rat Boy, a legendary thief who terrorized high society residences for 20 consecutive years. Small and agile, 5 feet 1 inch tall, he could move across Edo's rooftops without making a sound. He broke into over 100 daimyo residences between 1783 and 1803. He specialized in the homes of the Hatamoto, direct vassals of the shogun. He only stole money, never personal items or family heirlooms, following his own code. He distributed part of the stolen money to poor families in the Asakusa district, leaving small blue cloth bags with coins on their doorsteps. He was finally caught after attempting to rob the residence of Lord Date of Sendai during a heavy snow in January. His footprints in the snow betrayed him. He had stolen an estimated total of 3,000 ryo during his career, equivalent to the annual salary of 60 samurai. Sentenced to crucifixion with piercing, Haritsuke ni Tataki. The cross was erected in Suzugimori at 7 o'clock in the morning, nailed to the wood with 4 iron spikes through his hands and feet, then systematically pierced with sharpened bamboo spears, yari. 52 perforations were meticulously counted by the official executioner, Yamada Asaemon Yoshifusa. Each spear was dipped in coarse salt to increase the pain and prevent infection. The goal was to prolong suffering, not hasten death. The perforations followed a specific pattern: arms. Legs, abdomen, chest, avoiding the heart and lungs until the very end. 25,000 spectators packed Suzugimori Beach. Entire families traveled from other provinces. "The poor of Edo will remember me when the rich forget me," he said, before the first spear pierced his left arm. Recorded in detail in the Edo Magistrate's Diaries, Volume 78, he died after 6 hours of systematic torture. His story inspired dozens of kabuki plays, still performed today in Tokyo theaters. A statue was erected in his honor in Asakusa in 1953. If you value documented historical content like this, please subscribe. It is essential for us to continue this work. Comment your city in the comments. Now, let's return to the story. Number 6, Marabashi Chuya, 1651, Edo. A Ronin master of Kenjutsu from the Edo Ryu school, involved in the Cayen Conspiracy alongside Yui Shosetsu. A veteran of the Osaka campaigns, he fought against the Tokugawa clan twice before becoming an underground instructor. For 10 years, he secretly trained 200 discontented samurai in urban combat and assassination techniques in an abandoned house in the Honjo district. He planned to lead the direct attack on Edo Castle during the fabricated fire that would serve as a distraction. The plan included scaling the walls using grappling hooks and silk ropes, then killing specific guards whose routines they had studied for months. He was betrayed by Okamoto Daihachi, one of his own students, who received 100 ryo of gold as a reward, enough money to buy a large house in Edo, captured 3 weeks before the planned execution for the 26th of July. Executed by the most sadistic method of Japanese justice, Nokogiri Biki, literally sawed alive, buried vertically in the ground up to his neck on Suzugimori Beach at 5 o'clock in the morning on the 12th of August. Only his head remained exposed to the scorching summer sun. A sharpened bamboo saw, 12 inches long, was left stuck in the sand beside his head. Anyone passing by could pick up the saw and cut his neck. It was popular participation in the execution. Women, men, children, everyone could contribute to his slow death. It took 2.5 days for him to die completely. 73 people participated in the cutting during that period, some making just one saw motion, others sawing for entire minutes. A detailed record was kept by the execution official, listing the name and origin of each participant. Local merchants, curious samurai, even Buddhist monks tested the saw. "A sword that does not cut has no value," were his final words recorded by the monk Takuan, who gave him the last Buddhist sacraments. Documented in the Edo period criminal archives. Scroll 42. His Marabashi Ryu sword school was banned by direct shogunal decree. His 115 known students were forced into permanent exile or seppuku. His family lost samurai status forever. Betrayed, buried, sawed. Number 7, Sakura Sagoro, 1653, Shimosa Province. A peasant leader who petitioned the shogun directly against abusive taxes. He broke all social hierarchies. He presented evidence of local officials. Corruption. He was ignored, then persecuted, executed with his entire family by Haritsuke, group crucifixion. 4 crosses, side by side in Kozu. He, his wife, and 2 children. The children were 7 and 5 years old. 1,500 peasants were forced to watch as a warning. "My children will pay for my pride," recorded by an official scribe, documented in the Sakura domain archives. His taxes were reduced posthumously. A temple was erected at the execution site. Each execution followed the same brutal pattern, calculated with scientific precision and industrial cruelty. Public spectacle maximized for collective psychological impact. Prolonged suffering timed by shogunate medical experts. Absolute social control through organized terror as official state policy. The Japanese judicial system did not merely execute individual criminals, it systematically murdered any spark of resistance to the established order. It eliminated hope for social change. It killed dreams of freedom. Each method was designed by committees of experts, physicians, engineers, primitive psychologists, not just to end a life, but to psychologically traumatize tens of thousands of spectators who were compelled to watch each public execution. The shogunate maintained entire departments dedicated to perfecting execution techniques. The Keibatsu Ka, or Department of Punishments, employed 142 specialized officials in Edo alone. They tested experimental methods on minor criminals before applying them to important political cases. They timed death durations with hourglasses imported from Holland. They measured scream intensity using primitive decibel scales. They documented microfacial expressions at different stages of agony to study psychological effectiveness. They developed correlation tables between crime type, execution method, and educational impact on the local population. Official records preserved in the Japanese National Archives list exactly 1,942 different execution methods cataloged and utilized between 1200 and 1868. each method documented in technical manuals with detailed diagrams. Each execution officially witnessed by at least 6 government officials. Each death designed to teach a specific social lesson about absolute power, immutable hierarchy, and the inevitable consequences of disobedience to the system. Professional executioners from the Yamada Asaemon family served the Tokugawa shogunate for 15 consecutive generations, developing progressively more refined techniques of applied scientific torture. They passed technical knowledge from father to son through secret handwritten manuals. They tested innovations on voluntary prisoners, promising them faster executions, lies that allowed unregulated medical experimentation. The position of chief executioner paid 300 ryo of gold annually plus benefits, a salary equivalent to that of a minor domain daimyo. The system operated like a mechanized industry, efficient, standardized, relentless in its deadly productivity. Kozukapara, Edo's main execution ground, processed an official average of 215 executions per year throughout the entire Tokugawa period. Suzugimori executed 380 people annually. 6 other smaller fields in the metropolitan region added another 500 deaths per year. Combined total, 1,100 public executions annually in the capital alone, equivalent to 1 execution every 8 hours continuously, including early mornings, nights, and religious holidays. Executions became mandatory family entertainment and highly profitable morbid tourism. Entire families of up to 4 generations planned multi-day trips to witness particularly famous or brutal executions. Inns near the execution grounds charged special prices, up to 5 times the normal rate. During poorage and in major events, such as the crucifixions of political conspirators, specialized ukiyo-e artists sold commemorative prints of the most spectacular deaths on the very day of the execution. Publishers released illustrated booklets with sensationalized biographies of the condemned. Children were compulsorily brought by parents as practical moral education about social consequences. Teachers organized school excursions for executions, considered especially educational. Judicial death became completely industrialized. It transformed into a mass spectacle, popular entertainment, an official pedagogical tool, and a thriving economic industry that employed thousands of people in auxiliary roles, from executioners and carpenters to street vendors and commercial artists. But there are revelations that official archives do not directly expose. Archaeological evidence discovered only during systematic modern excavations carried out in 1985 at the old Kozukapara execution ground, now the urban district of Minami Senju in Tokyo. The multidisciplinary team from the University of Tokyo, led by forensic archaeologist Dr. Yamada Kenzo and anthropologist Dr. Sato Michiko, excavated a mass grave of truly industrial proportions. 437 skeletons methodically stacked in layers, organized like sardines in a canning factory. Osteological analysis revealed mechanically identical cut marks on the cervical bones of 417 individuals, 95.4% of the total. The exact same 45-degree geometric angle, the same uniform depth of 1 inch. Toothed saw marks on 90% of the examined skulls. Fracture patterns indicating repetitive use of the same execution instruments for centuries. An authentic death assembly line that operated continuously for 673 years. Radiocarbon dating of stratified bone samples revealed that the oldest bodies buried in the pit date precisely to 1195, the early Kamakura period. The most recent skeletons tested positive for 1879, the end of the Meiji era. Mitochondrial DNA analysis of a female skeleton from the upper layer confirmed an age of approximately 30 years at death. Physical characteristics compatible with historical records of Takahashi Oden, the last woman publicly executed in Japan. Death as entertainment never truly ended in Japan, it merely changed its address.